Our story begins at the grand entrance to the Jedi Temple, as Anakin Skywalker has caught up to Ahsoka just in time. Ahsoka was heading away from the temple, as she decided to leave the Jedi Order after the recent events surrounding her shook her faith in the Jedi and in the Republic. The Jedi Temple was bombed, and when the blame was pointed at her, only Anakin was brave enough to try and help her. She had to find a new life, outside of just being a Jedi. But Anakin would finally catch up to her, and after some back and forth, he told Ahsoka that the Jedi Order is her life. She can't just throw it away like this. Ahsoka said perhaps that's true, but she has to sort this out on her own, without the Council and without Anakin. Anakin sighed, telling Ahsoka that he understands more than any other Jedi could. He understands wanting to leave the Order. Deep down, Ahsoka knew this, and deep down she knew it was about Padme. But today she thought maybe Anakin could come with her. She turned back, asking Anakin why he doesn't leave. Why not do what he wants to do? And Anakin looked past Ahsoka, out to the area where Padme's apartment stood, and he decided he couldn't trust Ahsoka, so he told her that Padme would never allow it. He recalled what Padme said early in the war when Anakin said he could leave the Order and be with her. Padme had told Anakin that he is able to give the people the main thing that is lost during war: hope, his capacity for joy even in the worst battles, his cleansing laughter, his devotion to saving every living being. He needs to be a Jedi, not for himself, but for the people that need him. And Anakin looked back down to Ahsoka, saying that without her, all of those qualities that Padme described will begin to fade. He told Ahsoka that he wishes more than anything that he could just leave the Order, but Padme is right. He needs to fight, and when this war is over, he will leave. Anakin reached his hand out, telling Ahsoka it's not just he that needs her, it's the galaxy. Whether it's the people of Onderon, Mon Cala, Kiros, or the Temple younglings, Anakin told Ahsoka that the people look up to her, and although it's not fair to her at such a young age, it has become her responsibility to bear. Ahsoka thought about all of this. She looked past the stairs, where a new life could be waiting, and finally she turned back to Anakin, making him promise that when this war is over, when the galaxy's at peace, they will be able to leave. Anakin smiled with relief, saying he promises, and Ahsoka would come back to him. But Anakin gave a small smile, saying they don't have to go back in yet. Perhaps they could use a couple days away, and together the two of them would go take a speeder to Padme's apartment, where Anakin would help plan a couple nights away from everything for the three of them. Unfortunately, the war did not wait for the three of them to be ready to fight again. After a few days away, the war swallowed Anakin and Ahsoka right back up. She'd returned to the Jedi Order, but she declined the rank of Jedi Knight for now, not out of doubt of her abilities, but because in meditation, she found she was not ready. Her loyalty to Anakin and her belief in the people she could still save remained intact, but her faith in the Council still wavered. Plus, she'd only been a Padawan to Anakin for a few years, all of them in war. She needed more time. Even so, on the front lines, she was the perfect complement to Anakin in battles once more. The clones were beyond happy to see that she was innocent and back with them. She and Anakin were unstoppable. On Megiddo, the two of them were dispatched here with an elite clone commando unit. As they pushed the Separatists back, neither knew that far from the cold of this planet, the clone named Fives was unraveling the truth of the chips inside the clone mines, until it was too late. They returned from victory to find the clone conspiracy in ashes. It was of course Palpatine who sent the two of them out to Megiddo after Tup's chip malfunctioned, hoping to distract these two Jedi while everything was figured out. And it worked. The war would become a blur. They were constantly in motion, from siege to skirmish, briefing to burial. On Scipio, Anakin was forced to confront the ugliest part of himself, the fear of losing Padme to someone else. Ahsoka was with him, and she saw the jealousy, but she helped him remember that love was not the same as possession. Their bond grew deeper, not just through the war, but through the moments between it. They began to read each other in silence, fighting in perfect harmony. Then was a mission to Obadiah, the unraveling of truth with every name they uncovered. Sifo-Dyas, Tyrannus, Dooku. The Jedi learned that Dooku helped to create the clone army. Ahsoka stood beside Obi-Wan and Anakin in the temple halls as the walls of certainty crumbled upon them. She thought of the clones, Rex, Jesse, Kix, how many of them had no idea what they were truly a part of. And the Jedi knew this truth had to stay hidden from the galaxy, at least for now. For 6 long months, they fought the Outer Rim sieges, Megiddo, Felucia, Cato Nemoidia, Seleucami, and so on. Nights were spent in the muddy trenches. They lost more men every day. Every battle report displayed more fallen Jedi. Cities were bombed to dust. The Republic pushed harder, and they were winning, but there was no satisfaction. Ahsoka kept herself moving through muscle memory, her thoughts often drifting back to how she could have walked away from this. But her presence anchored Anakin, and when his dark darkness swelled, her steady presence would keep him from slipping. When she faltered, when she questioned what they were even fighting for anymore, he reminded her that there were people who need them, people who still believed, including the very men they serve, like Rex. Then came the message. In the chaos of Urbana's broken streets, 2 transmissions came in tandem. Coruscant was under siege. General Grievous had launched a full-scale attack to capture the Chancellor. And from Mandalore, a plea. Bo-Katan requested Jedi aid to free her people from Maul's grip. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan stood together in the command room of their ship, as they knew this would be a turning point in the war, and it would soon be decided that Anakin and Ahsoka will go rescue the Chancellor, while Obi-Wan goes and finishes his own personal business with Maul. And so above Coruscant, as Republic and Separatist fleets clashed in the chaos of turbolasers and plummeting debris, Anakin and Ahsoka would cut through it all, starfighters slicing between cruisers and fighter swarms, gliding to the heart of the storm. Side by side, they spiraled through vulture droid formations, destroying what they had to, dodging whatever they couldn't. The invisible hand loomed ahead. As explosions rocked the surface of the ship, the 2 Jedi spun into the ship's hangar, leading from their cockpits mid-flight, lightsabers blazing as they cut down every single droid against them. When it was cleared, R2 would show the Master and Apprentice the way to Palpatine. The ship halls would be full of battle droids spilling out to slow them down. Ahsoka flipped between strikes with her twin sabers flashing around, deflecting bolts as Anakin bulldozed through waves with ease, carving through every resistance. They pushed toward the bridge until the elevator doors parted and they found Palpatine, bound to a chair. But of course, Dooku would be here, and Dooku's mission was to kill Ahsoka, which will force Anakin to use his dark side. The duel would be swift, brutal, the 3 of them fighting along the floor, Anakin doing his best to protect Ahsoka, but as they climbed the steps, Dooku separated them with a wave of the Force, and then he overwhelmed Ahsoka, blades striking fast before he unleashed a torrent of Force lightning that sent her collapsing to the floor. Anakin watched it happen, frozen for a second, and then something inside of him snapped as he had to save her. He charged in, every strike full of fury and fear that helped to guide his blade. Dooku parried, but Anakin was too much. The Sith apprentice was driven back, overwhelmed by the Force, and within moments, Dooku was disarmed, hands cut off. Anakin held the 2 blades across Dooku's neck. Palpatine ordered him to do it, but just before Anakin could kill him, Ahsoka reached out, grasping Anakin's wrist, telling him not to do this. That single touch was enough of a reminder of who he was. The storm in him hesitated. Anakin dropped the red blade and hit Dooku across the head with the hilt of his blue one, knocking Dooku unconscious. Sidious was furious. This was supposed to be the moment that unlocked Anakin's true darkness, and Ahsoka got in the way as always. The ship shook violently as Republic fire tore into it. Anakin said they should confront Grievous, but Ahsoka said there's no time. He will run as always. She urged them towards the escape pods, and the 4 of them, Anakin, Ahsoka, Palpatine, and the unconscious Dooku carried by Anakin, reached the pods. As they launched away, falling through the smoke-filled skies of Coruscant, Ahsoka stared out the viewport, her skin still stinging from Dooku's lightning. Anakin sat beside her silently. He touched something dark today, nearly lost himself to it, but Ahsoka had pulled him back, and for now, that was enough. Palpatine knew Dooku would have to be killed soon. He knew far too much, and they descended onto a Coruscant landing pad where a Jedi rescue team was waiting to help all of them as Dooku was officially arrested. And across the galaxy, on Mandalore, Obi-Wan Kenobi stood on the polished floor that was scarred from a recent battle. The halls echoed with the distant sounds of clone troopers clearing the lower levels and Mandalorian resistance fighters securing the area. Obi-Wan activated his communicator, sending a transmission back to the Jedi Temple with an update on his ongoing pursuit of Maul. To his welcome surprise, the call was answered by Anakin and Ahsoka after their update on the Outer Rim sieges. Anakin gave a small, proud nod, while Ahsoka leaned forward, expression teasing, as she shared that they'd captured Dooku without him. Obi-Wan allowed himself a brief smile as he wished them well with a steady calm, his presence grounded even as the weight of his own mission bore down upon him once more. The message would end, and the search for Maul would continue, but on Coruscant, Anakin and Ahsoka would be called back into the council chambers. The council was proud of them, and they once more presented Ahsoka with the opportunity to become a Jedi Knight after the capture of Dooku. This time, Ahsoka accepted, and immediately after, the council would present Anakin with his own new rank. He would become a Jedi Master. Anakin and Ahsoka would go through the ceremony together, and things were looking up for the first time in years. The war was winding down, but across Coruscant, Sidious was altering his plans. Anakin was simply not where he needed him to be in order for him to become a Sith. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Padme had kept him in the light, and Palpatine decided he simply could not rely on Anakin to join him. He would need to be a victim of Order 66. and in order to do this, they would have to be off Coruscant. With Dooku in Republic custody and the Separatist leadership fractured, the galaxy was teetering on the brink of resolution to this war, or so it seemed. Chancellor Palpatine praised Anakin and Ahsoka for their valor and informed them of a new lead. General Grievous has been located deep in the Outer Rim on a remote world called Murker. Without hesitation, the two Jedi accepted this assignment, departing with the 501st almost immediately. The war was not over yet, and the promise of ending it by capturing Grievous could not be ignored, and so the two of them, with their clones, took off to Murker. And as they flew through hyperspace, Anakin and Ahsoka would be informed of the creatures hidden in the trees on this planet called Ysalamir. These creatures were special, as they created unseen bubbles where the Force could not reach. Palpatine had long known of Murker and the Ysalamir. Sending the two Jedi there was the perfect move to make sure they will not survive what was to come, as Grievous would be executed personally by Chancellor Palpatine whenever he has a free moment. He was not on this planet, he was out on Utapau, but he would not survive the coming end to the war. Back on Coruscant, events moved as Palpatine perfectly played his role. He sent a carefully encrypted message from his private terminal, transmitting it on an older frequency that he was allowing to be intercepted by the Jedi Council. The content would reveal Sidious's true identity as the Sith Lord, but it was no accident. The Council intercepted the transmission and reacted with the expected urgency, falling right into the trap. Windu, Sazitan, Aegoncolar, and Kit Fisto departed immediately aboard a secure Republic shuttle for the executive building. And as the Jedi shuttle approached the hangar, Sidious waited with a chain of explosive charges hidden beneath the landing platform. As the Jedi landed, the charges would detonate immediately. Fire tore through the hangar, erupting in a blinding flash that shattered windows across the main level. The hangar collapsed into itself, burying the remains of the four Jedi Masters beneath layers of flame and ruin. Palpatine staggered weakly from the wreckage moments later, face burned and contorted by the blast that he personally got himself caught into. Clutching his disfigured features, he claimed this was a failed Jedi assassination attempt meant to end the war by force and take over the Republic. So, as dusk fell across the capital and Jedi were trying to figure out what went wrong, Palpatine activated his final contingency. With Dooku captured, Grievous exiled and soon to be executed, and the Jedi painted as villains, he spoke to all of the clones as Order 66 would be issued. Across the galaxy, clones received the signal, a silent command hardwired into their brains. On worlds from Seleucami to Felucia, starships and stations, Jedi generals fell quickly to their own men. And on Murker, Anakin and Ahsoka moved through thorny vines and massive, ancient trees. The air was thick, buzzing with insects, and the deeper they moved into the forest, the more distant the force became, until it was nothing, an emptiness that left them disoriented. The Ysalamir blanketed the forest in bubbles of force-nullifying energy. The Jedi couldn't feel each other, they couldn't sense any danger, even their connection to life itself was muted. But Grievous was supposed to be here. The trap had been set for them. The signs led to a clearing ahead, but as they entered it, the two Jedi found nothing. And then the message came in to the 501st. The clone helmets buzzed with Order 66. The 501st soldiers that Anakin and Ahsoka had fought beside, trained with, laughed with, now moved with cold ruthlessness. The Jedi couldn't reach into their minds, couldn't sense their intentions, couldn't even feel their presence anymore. And in one motion, the rifles were raised. The first shots were wild. Anakin unleashed his blade, deflecting a few out of instinct, and Ahsoka rolled behind a fallen tree, her sabers barely catching the fire before she felt the first burn into her thigh. Then another tore into her shoulder, spinning her into the roots. She gritted her teeth, crawling around, leaving a trail of blood on the moss. Anakin tried to keep blocking, but a shot grazed his arm. He dove toward Ahsoka as more bolts screamed overhead, scooping her into his arms as Jesse barked unseen orders into the chaos. The clones closed in. Anakin held Ahsoka, running as far as he could to safely get away until he kicked open an animal burrow beneath the roots of a collapsed tree and dove underground. The crawl space here was tight and pitch black, but they were well hidden. Roots were clawing at them, mud filling their senses. Anakin dragged the two of them inch by inch through this hollowed out tunnel that some native predator had abandoned, never knowing where they could be leading to. Behind them, the sound of boots were spreading across the clearing, clones searching, scanning, setting up perimeter traps, and deep underground, Anakin laid Ahsoka down as he bound her wounds with scraps of his robe. They didn't understand what had happened, why their brothers had turned. They were alone, injured, and hunted in a jungle without the Force, as the clones above them were going to search non-stop until they were dead. Far from these jungles, Obi-Wan Kenobi was moving to his Republic Venator as blaster bolts screamed towards him. Officers fell in the crossfire. He deflected, spun, and leapt between railings and corridors, but the numbers added up quickly. Turbo lifts slammed shut, hallways were blocked with ray shields. Clone pilots turned the ship's internal defenses against him, locking him inside a tightening hall. Somewhere in the chaos, the ship had shuddered. Nav systems were scrambled, and the Venator he was in was yanked out of hyperspace, thanks to Maul deep inside the ship, tearing into the hyperdrive. As the ship came out above an uninhabited moon, the hull groaned and buckled. Fires erupted along the ship. Using the brief loss of control to his advantage, Obi-Wan cut down a final squad between him and the starfighter bay, and he got into a ship that launched hard from the failing vessel. His shields were damaged, life support was flickering, but he was alive. Cody, the 212th, and Maul would go down with the ship, and Obi-Wan was left wondering what had gone wrong, and if Anakin was alright. On Murker, the days would pass so slowly and without mercy. Deep within the underbelly of the jungle, Anakin and Ahsoka remained hidden beneath a collapsed root system for days at a time, curled into the cold, damp soil of this natural tunnel. The Force was distant. There was no light, no warmth, no clarity. Just the steady hum of a Jedi distress beacon Anakin had activated and wedged into the earth beside him. It pulsed in the dark like a fading heartbeat, a message to a galaxy that may no longer be listening. Their rations had run out a day ago. Anakin had given the last of his to Ahsoka, with the wounds in her leg and shoulder making her too weak to argue. And now Anakin lay motionless, breathing shallow, skin pale from starvation and exhaustion. Above them, clone patrols passed regularly, and as Ahsoka was about to succumb to it all, a sound came that she almost didn't believe. Blaster fire. Yelling, the unmistakable snap and hum of a lightsaber, cutting, deflecting, moving fast. Ahsoka stirred. Dust shook from the roots as something heavy crashed above them, followed by a deeper voice barking orders and the rhythm of unorthodox clone tactics. She recognized them quickly. The Bad Batch was here. It all started on Caller. When Order 66 was called, Obi-Wan's damaged ship crash-landed near the outskirts of the planet, where the Bad Batch had been finishing a mission with Depa Billaba. They hesitated at the order, confused by the sudden shift in the immediate betrayal of the Jedi across the stars. When Obi-Wan explained what happened, they listened, and Obi-Wan used the Force to find and help remove Crosshair's chip. Together, on the Bad Batch ship, Tech picked up Anakin's beacon, and together, they followed the signal until they reached Murker. And now the Clone Force 99 transport descended into the clearing, blades of the engines kicking up the soil from torn vines as Obi-Wan emerged from the side ramp. The Bad Batch cleared the last of the patrols, and Obi-Wan dropped into the burrow himself, lifting Anakin and Ahsoka gently into the ship. Medical kits were already open, rations were passed, bacta pouches were attached to the two Jedi. The ramp was sealed back up as the vessel took off. And as the ship streaked into hyperspace, leaving the jungle and the clone betrayal behind, Ahsoka finally let herself close her eyes as she was alive and safe. In hyperspace, Anakin soon awoke to see Ahsoka rested nearby. Obi-Wan sat beside him. The war wasn't over, not yet. Coruscant awaited, and Yoda had sent word that Sidious had surfaced again. His presence was not tracked to the Senate or to the depths of the temple, but to the Coruscant medical facility. They didn't know why, but there was no time to wait, and the four of them, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Yoda, would prepare for the final confrontation, as Anakin and Ahsoka used the flight to Coruscant to heal and call upon the Force to bring them back to full strength. Soon, they descended into the streets of Coruscant as the medical facility loomed ahead. The moment they entered, Sidious felt them and the duel erupted instantly. Yoda leapt into the air, green saber crashing down as Sidious met him in mid-spin, blades clashing through the hallway. Anakin and Ahsoka flanked left and right, forcing Sidious to backpedal into a surgical chamber, while Ahsoka moved above them. Obi-Wan's blade moved in tight arcs, while Anakin brought raw force. Sidious unleashed bolts of lightning in every direction, forcing them to separate. But Ahsoka dropped down from above, driving him back with a flurry of strikes. Sidious spun, unleashing a brutal strike aimed at Yoda, but the Grandmaster leapt above him, landing on a hovering medical droid, using it as a launch point to return with a crushing downward blow. Sidious parried, only for Obi-Wan's saber to slash across his robes, forcing him to stumble. Anakin's saber struck low, severing Sidious's leverage with a powerful sweep, while Ahsoka leapt in, to knock his blade free with a spinning kick. Sidious collapsed, snarling, reaching for one last surge of lightning, but Yoda caught his hand with a perfect strike, severing it clean. Anakin's blade followed a moment later, finishing the Sith Lord. The darkness in the room began to recede, and behind a pair of doors, the Jedi turned to Padme, who'd just given birth. Sidious was here to kill her and take the twins, but they were all safe now. Anakin soon stood beside Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, eyes fixed on Padme and the children. The Sith were gone, the Skywalker family was whole, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, the future felt possible. In the months that followed, peace returned to the galaxy. The Republic restructured itself with the Senate purged of corruption, and the military scaled back to peacetime needs. The Jedi Order rose again, but different. Ahsoka chose to remain a Jedi, not out of obligation, but conviction. She was a symbol of balance and renewal, training a new generation with empathy at its core. Obi-Wan was named Grand Master of the Order, guiding it as a servant of the Force. Yoda stepped into the shadows to let the new Jedi grow without his weight upon it. Anakin stepped away from it all, choosing a quieter life with Padme and their children, raising Luke and Leia beneath the stars that he once fought under. The Clone Wars were over, the darkness had passed, and the light of the Jedi was reborn. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know PPSW and Fantasy Folklore both have a video coming out like tomorrow on Ahsoka, or today. I don't know when this one's getting released, I'm gonna be so honest, so it's either getting released today or tomorrow, whatever. Maybe it's released in a week. Either way, I enjoyed it. It was a fun one to write. I just, like, as always, started with me just kind of wanting Order 66 to go off with Anakin and Ahsoka together. Like, all my videos kind of start off somewhere in the middle, and like, I just have to kind of work around that, and I think it works well. So, appreciate you guys listening. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.